to reward all of you who are timely. I am Kathleen Kelly, privileged to serve on the Palm Desert City Council, and this year in our rotation system to serve as mayor. I'm joined by Mayor Pro Tem Jen Harnick and quite a number of key staff, some of whom will have a chance to introduce themselves during the course of our time. This is the second in what we hope will be a series of town halls this year. The first was called a virtual town hall. I'm revising that because this is not virtual, it's real. We're all actually here. So this is our second two-dimensional town hall. And with the progress we're currently experiencing, we can hope that before the end of this calendar year, it will be possible to have a three-dimensional town hall. Thank you for being part of what's possible today. We've tried to feature a different part of the city in our first two gatherings. We featured the North Sphere at the first town hall. Our emphasis today is the eastern part of the city. And so at one juncture, I want to be sure to invite any questions from residents there. Before we get started with what was planned for today, the hot news, of course, is that Riverside County has moved into the red tier. And I want to say just a couple of words about that before I give general instructions for our time and move on with the agenda, in hopes that by the time I give the general instructions, everyone will be here to hear them. I'm going to share my screen long enough to look at the beginning of a presentation we may have time for, and to feature some of the key attributes of being in the red tier. Of course, it's exciting for us because we have been purple for so long, and any color other than purple feels like welcome encouragement, and indeed it is. But I want to feature that red is still a color of alarm, and in the red tier, there are still very significant restrictions that are designed to make sure that we all get to the finish line of this pandemic safely. So, for example, yes, indoor restaurant service will be possible for the first time in some long while, which will be welcome news to both residents and restaurateurs. Movie theaters and higher education, to the extent our higher education institutions choose to do so. But there is a limitation of 25% capacity or 100, whichever is fewer. And that signals that there's still serious risk before us, particularly with the variants that are now emerging. And I suspect most of you have seen in the news that sadly, Europe is starting to experience a further surge. We don't want that to happen for the sake of our fellow residents, our first responders, and our businesses. We want to hang tough with safeguards to make sure that that doesn't happen. Currently, our levels of infection are about what they were the third week of October. And you realize how quickly things changed after the third week of October. So let's do all we can to make sure that the changes are in a positive direction. Shopping malls, libraries, retail establishments will be limited to 50% capacity. Your council members have conducted a series of interviews with people most affected by the pandemic. And this is part of our effort to really make sure that we all appreciate the kinds of consequences it has had. And we're all inspired to do our part to maintain safe practices until the finish line. And I want to share with you an excerpt from an interview I did with a nursing supervisor at Eisenhower Hospital. We all have great hopes for the vaccine, but of course it's going to take several months before all members of the public can receive it.
Right.
Should we keep wearing masks, social distancing, and hand washing during this time?
Absolutely, because the data is inconclusive at this time as to whether someone can be harboring virus, not becoming infected themselves because they've been vaccinated, however, still pass it on to someone else who has not been vaccinated. So it's crucial, absolutely crucial, that people continue to wear masks. Until the vaccine has had time to work in the body and develop enough antibodies and get someone fully protected up to that 95 or so % efficacy that they're saying it is going to have with it or carry with it, there's still that time of vulnerability. And so again, it's the respect thing. It's being respectful of that, and it's going to take time for the majority of people to have received that vaccine and be protected.
These interview excerpts are available on the city's webpage, as well as pdconfos.com, which you saw at the conclusion of that excerpt. And I deeply hope that you'll make use of them in your own social media sharing to help influence our community's behavior. We've really pulled together well these last months, supporting our local businesses, supporting our restaurants with takeout or outdoor dining when it's been permitted. And we can make it to the finish line together if we keep promoting the values that have gotten us this far. Speaking of all that makes Palm Desert great, we have a great new city manager in Todd Heilman, who has joined this Zoom. Todd is the fruit of a very extensive national search for our new city manager. And we were extremely pleased by the caliber of applicants we received. It's a credit to the whole city. Todd comes to us from Denton, Texas, and I wonder if you'd please just say a few words to introduce yourself to the group.
Sure, Mayor. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Todd Heilman, and I started my tenure with the City of Palm Desert on March 1st as the city manager. I spent the last 20 years, 4 of which managing the organization in Denton, Texas, which is a rapidly growing suburb of about 150,000 people north of Dallas. Prior to that, I was in Glenview, Illinois, which is a North Shore Chicago suburb for about 12 years. And then prior to that, I was the city manager in Avondale, Arizona, just a few hours away for about 4 years as well there. So a lot of experience, very happy to be in Palm Desert. I was kind of blown away at the community, and I'm happy to be part of it and help us move forward. So thank you, appreciate that, and happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Let me offer some instructions to the group about questions, and then I'll take the liberty of asking the first question. We will use the raised hand function here in Zoom, and you find that by clicking on the participants tab and then going to the bottom where raised hand will be one of your options. I'm going to ask you all to refrain from raising your hands initially with general questions because we have a couple of explicit topics to cover, and I want to be able to solicit questions that are about that in particular.
Mayor, if I may, yesterday when everybody's Zoom was updated, they changed the raise hand function just to trick us, I think. It's under reactions now.
Oh, it's both places.
Oh, is it? I thought they had taken it from participants. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think they kindly put it both places. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll take the liberty, Todd, of asking a question which I've heard from many, many residents. Of course, there's been quite a lot in the press about the proposed sports arena, which developers are hoping to construct just outside the city limits on the other side of the freeway. Some people are excited. Some people are expressing concerns about impacts. What can you tell us about the role our city is playing in connection with this proposal?
Well, I have spent some time with Ryan Stendell, and he and Eric Seha from our planning department are monitoring it pretty closely, very, very in tune with the feedback that we've been getting. So I'll turn it over to Ryan and Eric to see if you have kind of the latest updates on what's going on and how we're weighing in to make sure that our interests are protected.
Sure. Thanks, Todd. And I'm going to look to Eric for any of the details if any questions about that comes up. But the city, being an adjacent agency to the county, is essentially a responsible agency or a reporting agency under the California Environmental Quality Act. And that means that the county has to ask us for comments on the project. Now, without going too far down the rabbit hole on the CEQA side of things, which could bore you all to sleep, that means that we get to make the applicable comments to ensure that the project addresses transportation, public safety, sustainability and air quality. And so that means that those documents will be transmitted to the city with adequate time to review and make comments. And those comments aren't just, received and filed and put in, the back of the file and never seen again. They are required to report back and show that they've mitigated those concerns. So Staff is keeping an eye on it with that balanced approach that the mayor indicated, that some are very excited about it, some are very cautious about it. So we're taking a careful look at those plans and making sure that the impacts to Palm Desert are considered very seriously. Eric, did I leave anything out?
That was perfect.
Well, I can't disagree. Just so we're clear, have any hearings actually taken place at the county level at this juncture?
Not to date.
Okay. And let me see, while we're on this topic, if any participants do have questions about the proposed arena. Looks like you answered them if they had them. When I thought about the eastern part of our city, one of the first things I thought about was Freedom Park. I'm extremely proud of the parks that Palm Desert maintains throughout our city. They're widely dispersed. You can always find a park within walking distance, and Freedom Park is one of our currently 2 regional parks with extensive resources. And so I asked staff to prepare a presentation to let you know that even in the face of the pandemic, it's been possible to continue to make strategic investments in our parks and to maintain this great asset. So back to Ryan.
Okay, can everybody see the screen that I have up right now? Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay, let me get it on to, there we go. All right, so the mayor has been kind enough to give staff some guidance on this presentation, and as she indicated as a roadmap, we're going to start over at Freedom Park. But then she was also kind enough to give us a little bit of latitude as far as tooting the city's horn as how parks have truly made our lives better through this pandemic period. So using that roadmap, let's get going. Freedom Park on the eastern edge of town is located on Country Club Drive, just east of Tamarisk Row and west of Washington. It's a 27-acre facility, as indicated, a regional park, and shares commonalities with Ronald Reagan Elementary School and some joint use facilities. Kind of the neat thing about teaming up with the school district is that the school gets to use this for their playground facilities. And if you're following my cursor, I'm trying to make it easy to see, but the soccer field adjacent to Ronald Reagan is used by the school during the daytime hours and open to the public in the evenings. So these joint use facilities are really efficient and make good use of public assets. The amenities at a regional park are traditionally a little bit larger in scope. You're going to see large ball fields, soccer facilities. One of the unique amenities at Freedom is goalposts for football use on the soccer field to the southeast, which is down over here. So you have a flex space that works for both soccer and football. You have your traditional basketball courts, playground, open, unprogrammed green space, large and small dog parks, and lastly, 8 permanent pickleball courts. And those were completed in 2020. So we have watched at a staff and policy level as pickleball as a sport has grown tremendously over the last decade or dozen years, especially here in the Coachella Valley. If anybody hasn't seen pickleball, I'm using the picture up right now to just show you it's similar to tennis. You've got 4 players, but on a much smaller court. And that increase in use has led us to several different bites at the apple as to how to provide facilities to the pickleball users. And in Well, we've been through several iterations at Freedom Park, but in about 2018, the pickleball users came to the city and started kind of asking for some minor refinements to the facility. The sport had grown tremendously, and you were seeing people come for the day or for a 4-hour period, and they were bringing their bag, a lawn chair, and an ice chest because people were really having a great time and people were sticking around. And that was great, but you had stuff everywhere. So while the pickleball users were initially kind of looking for more space, as we started refining the needs, it was really just some reconfiguring of the spaces that they had. The council, the city council, had asked staff to work with the Parks and Recreation community, the Parks and Recreation Commission, and go out and speak to the community. We had a couple of on-site public forums. We invited pickleball users to Parks and Recreation Commission meetings and ultimately settled on a project that began in 2019, adding permanent shade, as you're seeing in the picture that I just flew up on screen, added some additional fencing and signage that helped define areas of play and areas of non-play, and the added layer of additional sports court lighting, which you're seeing kind of in the background and may not seem very evident, but one of the reasons that the players were asking for additional courts was because we were running out of space. But by expanding the hours the courts could be used, we didn't really need to add more courts. We just needed to figure out how we could expand hours of play. And then lastly, this overview shows one of the very small but interesting improvements that was made, which is there's a small fence right here, and we like to call at staff level, this is the living room. This is the area that has the permanent shade where users bring their lawn chairs, their bags, their ice chest, and they can set up socially distanced and still enjoy their recreational amenities. This improvement really enhanced Freedom Park. It was a minor tweak and a much larger program, as this kind of zoomed out aerial footage shows that this is still kind of one asset within a 27-acre regional park, but is a true gem for the region. And the pickleball users stay in very close contact with the city, come to our Parks and Recreation Commission meetings often, and are very happy with the end results. Moving on to the other recreational amenity on the eastern side that recent improvements have been made is a little bit of a neat dichotomy in park style. What I just showed you was a 27-acre regional park. Joe Mann Park right down the street at Washington, just on Avenue of the States, just west of Washington, is a little 1.5 acre park facility operated in joint use with Palm Desert Country Club. Palm Desert Country Club actually owns the land, and the city has a long-term lease on this property, and includes much smaller scale amenities for the neighborhoods that are in the area. And oftentimes you'll find people riding their bikes, driving their golf cart, or walking to this facility. And in 2018, because of its proximity to some housing that the city's housing authority owns, we were able to qualify for a grant that allowed us to make improvements to this site, including new playground equipment, shade structures, and the addition of ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act apparatus, which the most visual you're seeing in the center of the screen, which is a ADA compliant swing. These are small tweaks used, and we're able to leverage grant funding to redo a much needed playground in a residential area. One of the other undersold elements of Joe Mann Park that I tell anybody to check out if you're over there is the peaceful rose garden that exists on property. As I mentioned, this property is actually owned, the underlying property owner is Palm Desert Country Club. And when this park lease was negotiated, PDCC felt very strongly that this rose garden, this sensory garden, remain in place. So the city took on that obligation and keep this maintained at a very high level and available to the public. This is a really nice little place to grab a cup of coffee or read a book on your lunch hour. And it's something that a lot of residents often don't even realize is there. So if you're over at Joe Mann Park, check out the Rose and Sensory Garden. Now, those are the two park improvements that have been going on the eastern edge of town. And using a little bit of the liberties I spoke of at the beginning, I want to share some good news about how our parks have been utilized through this pandemic period, and some of the kind of the nuggets of goodness that we've seen at staff level. So at Civic Center Park, immediately after all of our playgrounds were closed, we got to work. We replaced the shade covers over top of the two playgrounds. We were able to get into the volleyball facility and change out all the nets and the edge barrier materials, and level and fluff the dirt, which really is hard to do when you have such significant use there. So we were really able to get into Civic Center and make some improvements to some of the most popular facilities. They're often hard to maintain. And lastly, at Civic, if anybody hasn't been here during the springtime, you got to know that there's turtle rescues happening daily. So come by in the springtime, you'll find our turtles sunbathing at the edge of the lake, and a duck that'll more than likely, or duck or two that'll likely come say hi. But you know, the ponds at Civic Center have taken on a biology of their own and is a true attraction. But we have some staff that put a lot of time and effort into making sure that those critters are safe. The Aquatic Center, which is located within Civic Center Park, opened in 2011. Again, as the Aquatic Center went into its closure period of the pandemic, we got to work and we created made a lot of improvements. What you're seeing here is staff taking on fixing of the water wheel that exists on the children's apparatus. Or in my case, Dad likes to stand under that and let the water hit me in the summer too. So it works for all ages. We replaced the vinyl flooring in the community room, and we made some significant enhancements in our concession stand. When time was appropriate, our Aquatic Center staff, which is operated by the Family YMCA of the Desert, got busy understanding what it's going to take to reopen this facility when it's allowed to. And they did such a great job of creating a plan that was safe, met the compliance standards of Riverside County, and got us back to work. And this is just an example of what the daily entry looks like at the Aquatic Center. We also slowly brought staff back and began training, understanding and making sure that the lifeguards understand how we're going to adequately sanitize the facility so that we could ultimately get back to business, which is what you're seeing in this picture right here. Now, operations are not 100% like they are pre-pandemic. The YMCA has rolled out a reservation system that admittedly on all fronts is not perfect, but they are doing a really good job of managing the pandemic, taking reservations, and making sure that this public asset's open to the community. Hiking trails. Wow, what a fantastic way to kind of blow off some steam. About a year ago, as the pandemic was occurring and most people were learning how to live within it, we at staff level saw the hiking explode. And it happened in a very positive way. Our staff works a lot with contract agencies. And one of our agencies that's actually not even under contract with the city, they're a volunteer-led organization with the Friends of the Desert Mountains, came to the table almost immediately asking, how can we help? Our Friends of the Desert Mountains, a local not-for-profit agency, helped us get additional signage out on trails, make sure that trail maintenance was still being looked at, and even helped our contracted staff deploy some additional trash receptacles when needed. The good news is, as many of us were boots on the ground at the very beginning months of the pandemic, and while hiking volume increased dramatically, we saw nothing but responsible behavior. High volumes of hikers, social distancing, and wearing their masks. It was really, really a good sight to see as we were getting as we were understanding what life was going to be like for the next months and ultimately year. And lastly, making sure that I get this out there. Can't talk about our pals at the Friends of the Desert Mountains without mentioning that their entire month of March is dedicated to the Coachella Valley Wildflower Festival, an event that generally happens in person, but is a month-long event now, digitally based. I'll put the website to the event in the chat box when we're done, but there's a whole host of activities to be had through the month of March, all aimed at getting people out into the mountains and enjoying our wildflowers. One more slide, bear with me, I promise I'm almost done. On the recreational side, when we were able to return to programming, our partners in rec, the YMCA got the Youth in Government program going again. Again, you'll see some examples and pictures of how spacing of chairs and masks required really let our youth get back to work. When sports was allowed again, our rec partners put together what they were calling return to practice plans. And you saw Y Rookies and other youth-based programming getting going again. And our desert recreation partners have mastered the scavenger hunts, which really give you an activity without having to mix households. And they put together an Easter scavenger hunt and a Halloween scavenger hunt, which gave a lot of our public, a lot of our people something to do during the pandemic with your family. And it was a really, really well-received programs. So with that, I gave you a little bit about what we've done in our parks and how some of our partners are programming. I don't know how the mayor wants to handle this, but I am available. Any of our staff that's on the call are available for questions. And I hope we've done a good job.
Fantastic. And congratulations to you and to all of the staff involved in that great work. Yes, let's see if we have any questions that spring from that presentation. And you can either raise your hand, or if you're feeling shy, you can put your question in the chat. Or if you just have a comment about your enjoyment of our city parks, that's fine too. Looks like you covered it all. Let me shift then just to open this up a bit more broadly because we're focusing on the eastern part of the city. I want to make sure any residents from the eastern part of the city who have particular questions get a chance to ask those first. So if you are a resident from the eastern part of the city and you have a question, either raise your hand or put something in the chat, or last result, wave vigorously. Going once, going twice. All right, let me open it up generally to any questions. Looks like people are still mulling. So let me share a bit more information about what your city has been up to during the pandemic. And it will take just a second to get back to those slides.
I think Mr. Floyd has his hand up.
Second.
Hi, yes, thank you. It's Kim Floyd. Is there significant real estate development plan around Freedom Park? And do we know what the configuration of that development will be?
Ryan, you want to take that?
Sure. Hey, Kim, how you doing? The area around Freedom is pretty much built out. And if you bear with me for a second, I will. Are you seeing my map?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you notice, my satellite won't work. Freedom Park has generally, in the city limits, built out on all sides, practically speaking. Now, across the freeway in the county area, there is some potential for development outside of the city's current jurisdiction. So there really isn't much for development on that side of town in this location.
So does
Thank
that-
you.
Great. Okay, just a second. All right. I'm going to go back to sharing a bit more about and I'll come back to your question, Mr. Nelson, right after this next segment. A bit more about what your city has been up to during the pandemic. The support marshaled by the city using available federal, state, and city resources has been quite all-encompassing, including very, very prompt emergency assistance for our businesses, additional supportive outreach, targeted strategic support for our hospitality industry, continuing work to expand the CSU campus, and support for the other key organizations like Find Food Bank that have been so critical to survival during this time. So let me share just a bit more about each of those. Early in the pandemic, there were efforts at the federal level to pass the initial PPP program, which some of our businesses eventually qualified for. But it took time and it had complications. And of course, people needed immediate support for survival of our distinctive businesses that are so key to our community. Palm Desert adopted a $1.5 million supportive program with zero interest and very easy requirements for forgiveness of the loans. In essence, if the money was spent on essential business expenses to survive this, those loans are forgiven. The support adopted for our hotels is highly strategic by offering to extend stays, and the extension of stays is to the benefit of the whole area economy. We feel that that can play a key role in getting everyone back to work. As with parks, we haven't stood still on other critical city priorities, and we authorized $150,000 as seed money to form Priority One Coachella Valley, which is an independent nonprofit continuing to work for expansion of our CSU campus to a freestanding campus. That will take time and it will take some political successes. But in the meantime, we've done some immediate things to expand the programs available to students and provide additional opportunities for our young people throughout the Coachella Valley to raise themselves up with better employment. A key is the establishment of a Palm Desert Innovation Hub, which is adjacent to the CSU campus. This is designed to both attract new tech startups to Palm Desert and, importantly, to facilitate internships for a new cybersecurity training program at the CSU Palm Desert campus. This affords our young people an opportunity to break out from some of the industries that have been prevalent in the Coachella Valley. And it's so key to offer a STEM-related emphasis. And I think we can all vouch for the fact from personal experience that cybersecurity is going to be a need that's here to stay. As I mentioned, support includes working with community partners, such as Find Food Bank, to help those who are suffering the most. And I'm particularly proud of the $500,000 dedicated by Palm Desert to emergency rental assistance. While other branches of government were focused on moratoriums, which arguably just kicked the can down the road, we were able to marshal the funds from somewhat creatively using a federal resource to make sure that those in need in Palm Desert could actually have their rent covered to avoid a future problem. Of course, as we've progressed through the pandemic, outdoor dining became a key aspect of how our restaurants would survive, and quite frankly, how all of us would continue to enjoy life. And our community development department and economic development department worked hard with our individual restaurateurs to fashion solutions that worked for as many as possible and to support those with up to $3,000 toward expenses. The creation of Lupine Plaza on El Paseo created an additional safe environment for outdoor dining. The city continues to collaborate with Curative for drive-through testing, which is available Sunday through Thursdays at the UCR campus. Testing continues to be important, both to monitor for any potential rise in variants of the virus and, quite frankly, to satisfy the criteria that enable us to move from tier to tier. Because there's been less interest in testing, it's easy to get yourself scheduled or even just to stop by when it's convenient. So Ryan got the conversation started with good news, and I like that idea. So I'll continue with more good news. He's already talked about the enhanced amenities at Freedom Park. CV Link has made significant progress in Palm Desert during the pandemic. A key aspect of CV Link in Palm Desert is that it largely enhances existing bike paths in the city with improved safety and lane marking. So the use of these grant funds that were marshaled for the region is providing a superb benefit for our bicyclists without any impact on the city of Palm Desert budget. The route will take riders right to the new and improved San Pablo streetscape, phase 1 of which is already completed and phase 2 of which is underway. I hope everybody on this call has visited San Pablo phase 1. You get a good chance to do that at one of the farmers markets, either Wednesday mornings or once a month on Sunday. It's a festive, lively atmosphere, just as we were hoping for in this space, which is geared toward gatherings. And as soon as we get on the other side of the pandemic, it can be a superb event space that will help to support lots of our unique Palm Desert eateries in that vicinity. The developments on San Pablo have inspired a new mixed-use development on the corner of Fred Waring and San Pablo, which is quite a ways through the development approval process. This is the current rendering. And I must say, I think it's a superb architecture, kind of capturing the best of a desert look without appearing to mimic the past. It's really quite creative. That's not the only part of the city where things are happening. At our last town hall, Ryan gave quite a detailed report about University Park, where homes will be built out soon. And I included this here just in case you missed that town hall, because the schematic at the top shows two things of keen interest. One is just the variation in housing types. You can see very small lots, larger lots, multifamily housing are all included in this planned development. And that's consistent with our citywide commitment to offer a variety of housing types at a variety of price points. You can also see the green space preserved, consistent with our commitment to have parks and outdoor recreational opportunities available for everyone. Excuse me. At the north end, Monterey Crossing will also soon be built out with some of these familiar national brands. And a La Quinta Brewing Company site is set to open this coming spring on Technology Drive in the North Sphere. And finally, a new Holiday Inn Express. So the good news just doesn't stop. What can I say? I promised Mr. Nelson he'd be next up, and he has a question in the chat. which is the status of the traffic mediation on Dinah Shore Boulevard. And also a question about the commercial space on the corner of Gerald Fort and Portola Avenue.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can. Could you just elaborate on your questions a bit?
Thank you, Miss Kelly. I had spoken to, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, the gentleman in your traffic department. I guess I understand there's been some changes with management there. But I am on the board of directors for Genesis at the northern end of Palm Desert. And specifically, our parcel of land is abutted by two vacant parcels. One on the north side to Dinah Shore to the railroad tracks, that parcel. And then the other parcel that is across from us, which I understand to be the 27-acre city park that is to go in when we hit a unit number of 3,000, which I guess we're at 1,700 currently. So my question has to do with the accidents that we have experienced on Dinah Shore as it becomes a one-lane road, and there's a blind curve that then goes into a traffic circle. We have been experiencing, I would say, really serious accidents to the point that ambulances have to be called and cars are totaled on average about once a week now. I've expressed my concerns because some of these cars have almost gone into some of our owners' homes. And I've met with the sheriff's department a number of times, and I know it was being handled. There was a traffic study done, but I am eager to hear, I was supposed to hear the results of that study sometime around now. And I wanted to know if the results were made available yet.
Stephen, thank you very much for raising this. It sounds like you were in touch with someone at the city. Do you know the name of the person you were in touch with?
I'm gonna ask Eric Seha to remind me.
No, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Mayor. Planning staff has been meeting with Stephen regarding what's been happening on Dinah Shore. We have Randy Bowman in our Public Works Department involved in this as well. They are still looking at solutions, and I will follow up with them to see if the results of that study are available, Stephen, and get those to you.
Okay, great. I just want to let you know there was just another accident just probably about 30 minutes ago. That's pretty serious. They ran into the tree. So I'll have to deal with that at the moment. But I do want to impress upon that this circle is a problem because it's a blind circle and there is no light to the north of our property, no city lighting whatsoever. So it's complete darkness and there's none to the east. So having traffic circles and blind turns is not a good idea. So.
Well, Stephen, I can thank you for reaching out to the city. It looks to me like you have two very excellent people working on the issue. And of course, we'll follow up and make sure that it's addressed.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And the second one that I had to do with, I apologize I was late, but had to do with the current situation of the commercial space that sits on our, I guess, southwestern part of our property. We were told by the developer it was going to be some type of mixed use facility that, maybe a coffee shop or a nice, independently owned restaurant that we have pedestrian access to out of our property. But it has not, we have not gotten any information as to what's it being marketed as. And I just want to make sure that we're not entertaining putting any drive-throughs or anything of that nature on our on the side of our property there, because that's not within the scheme of what was proposed for most of our owners.
Does someone in community development have some insights to share, Ryan?
Stephen, just for context, Eric was your planner on the Millennium specific plan. So when it comes to details, you certainly know how to find Eric. Similarly to how I indicated before with the county's arena, if and when there is a project that's proposed on that site, you will be notified via legal notice. And there is nothing proposed at this point, and the specific plan as approved speaks of that neighborhood connectivity and that asset that really enhances those residential properties that are surrounding. So that's exactly why we wanted that pedestrian connectivity, and we haven't seen anything on the development of that property.
Okay. Is the goal to, is there if I don't know if it's under contract with a specific company to market it for you guys, but is there a timetable, or is it just left vacant until someone decides to develop it?
So it's privately held property with a approved specific plan, which acts as its zoning. And its zoning speaks of those high levels of connectivity and pedestrian connectivity. So again, as far as the details of what that plan says, Eric's more than happy to send you what that language, actually is. But it's zoning on a privately held piece of property. If they're marketing it currently, I'm not certain. I don't recall seeing a real estate sign on that property as of late. But it would come to the city through the planning process, just like any other project would in the future. And you'd be notified and given a chance to review the plans and make your own comments.
And from a council perspective, I can certainly share that your council has not been shy about rejecting proposals if they don't appear to be right for a neighborhood. We don't always go to the prom with the first person who asks. Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to add anything on that topic?
I think between Ryan's team and the mayor, I think you've hit it all.
Okay. It's time to get up your hands if you have questions on anything. I see one. I want to give people a chance here. Mr. Webb.
Hi, thank you. I know you addressed it earlier, but I didn't catch it. In regards to the stadium, if they've not filed paperwork for permits and so forth, what is the likelihood of something like that happening? And I'm asking on behalf of the district because I'm excited for the opportunity to have career technical education programs work there. I just want to know for planning purposes, I guess.
Mayor,
Wow.
if I can jump in there.
Yes.
There's a lot going on with that project, Sean. Essentially, the Classic Club and that development were approved through an environmental impact report over a decade ago. So there are county permits that have been started. They're revising those to address the stadium. So they do have new and updated documents. And per the county, they're hoping to at least take publish some of this information and start taking it through their process through public meetings at the end of April or in April.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. Ms. Radu-Sanaiko, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I can. Thank you. That was a good try on names. Most people mess them up in a huge way.
What's correct?
Joanne Radu-Sanaiko. My father said that if it was a G instead of a G instead of a D, we would be worth millions. Ragu?
Yeah.
I am new to this platform, and I'm in a situation as a resident here in Palm Desert where I have a concern against a company, and I have sent them several notices, and my statute of limitations is coming up, and there is no one. The company is trying to run out the calendar, and I have attempted to get lawyers involved, and their response is my situation that I would be paying them more than I would be making, and so nobody really wants to get involved with my project.
Let me make this suggestion.
Okay.
Because we probably won't be able to get into any details here. Could you just put your email or contact information in the chat? And that way we can follow up with you and see if there's anything that's within the city's purview to be of help with.
Thank you. Thomas, I responded to an email and signed up to participate, and the subject was compliance officer. Do you remember reading it?
I did see your email, yes.
Okay, good. All right.
I can pass that along. We have your contact information.
You do? Okay,
Great.
all right. Thank you.
Well,
it's problematic, and it just seems really unfair that companies can just entangle you in situations and let the clock run out so that you are not able to, have your day in court. And it's not that we really want to have our day in court. We just want to have some kind of them to come to the table and even talk to us.
I empathize. So we will check to see if there's anything within the city's purview. So
thank you for the opportunity to bring it to this meeting. Thank you.
Great. Kim, looks like you're up for question number 2.
Thank you for the opportunity. I heard in reporting this morning that some of the cities have been informed about the amount of the dollar funds they will receive under the COVID Recovery Act. And I wonder if we, for our city, have received that information yet.
Yes, we have. Of course, it's subject to confirmation, but in the draft documents, I believe it's 10.2 million, which is about the same as our projected deficit consequences of COVID. Now, all of that needs to be checked before we would say that it's definitive, but that's what I can share.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I do want to emphasize for everyone that you have a very, very responsive council and staff. And so please make use of the contact information on the website to reach out any of the council members would be happy to meet with you about topics of concern or ideas. Some of our very best ideas come from residents. And most of us do not publish particular office hours because we're willing to be flexible to meet what your availability is. And I see the ever efficient Neve Ortega on this Zoom, who's quite resourceful in finding available time slots. So if there are no other questions, I will let you all go to dinner. So thank you.
Thank you for a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.